Welcome back to the Shine Within podcast. Stacey has journeyed through some of life's toughest challenges and emerged with the wisdom to create what she calls everyday enchantment. With years of experience as a master life coach and intuitive, she empowers clients worldwide to heal and transform their lives. Stacey's unique blend of practical wisdom and intuitive insights brings a refreshing perspective on personal growth and self-discovery, embracing the beautiful messiness of being a soulful human. And yes, I understand the messiness.
Right?
I think I go through that messiness every day, trying to make it right. Like we're all here on earth just to figure out what the heck are we doing here?
Exactly.
What's going on? So Stacey, thank you so much for being on my show. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Gina, thank you so much. It is a pleasure. And I think to your point, I think one of the things, when you get kind of go into the spiritual realm or you do any self, discovery improvement work, you think, oh my gosh, I've got to like get my life into a place of like complete peace, complete, calm. And it's like that to me is not is never going to be how most of us are going to be on this planet. And so really being able to be true to what's going on while also knowing that you can always come back to that peace anytime because it's an inside job versus like trying to find it outside in the world around us.
Yes, we come here with amnesia. And then we're like, it's like Earth
Mm,
school, right? We come here with amnesia
totally.
and they were trying to figure out who we are. And that's the exciting
Mhm.
part. We're learning who we are as a spiritual beings. Like, yes, yes, yes,
Yes.
yes. And you're intuitive. I have to just, before we get into some of the questions I want to ask you, I want to
Yeah.
share a story with you. So during 2020, we had that long pause, and I wasn't, of course, not doing massage therapy anymore. Well, I started getting into women's business coaching, right? And so I wanted to get on a coaching call, and the lady was an intuitive business strategist.
Ooh,
And what caught my attention was the intuitive part. And let
mm,
me let me tell you something. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today, which is helping women, break through their alcohol dependency.
wow.
So when we had our one-on-one call, I was like, you know what? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm here actually because I have a health business, MML. And I
Mhm.
just want to go ahead and do better in it, learn more what I can do to help people. And she's like, and I said, but I also do massage. I want to kind of create my own massage business. I've been doing it for 17 years. I don't really want to do it anymore. And I'm also a wife and mom, and I've been cooking and cleaning and doing all the wifey stuff and mommy stuff. I said, but I don't know where I should be at. She's all, well, what have you been doing in your past? What did you go to school for? I said, well, I went to National Holistic Institute. I went to college and I dropped out. She said, well, what were you doing studying college? I said, behavioral science. I said, but I was actually drinking very heavily. And she said, well, are you sober now? I said, yes. She said, well, how many years? I said, well, back then it was 5. And so I was like, 5. She's like, well, why don't you help some people, some women who are struggling with either with alcohol addiction? And I'm like, duh, what am I doing? So thank you for the work that you do. I just want to go ahead and say thank you for the work that you do because you are an intuitive business coach as well and life
Yes.
coach. And so if it wasn't for you all, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. So I just want to say thank you.
I love that. And you know what it reminds me of, Gina, is something I've said for years. And anytime I'm like public speaking, people always stop on this particular thing. And it's like sometimes our life's biggest obstacle, the thing that we wrestle with the most, is our life purpose, right? There's some connection to it. So even when I was younger in my own life, I did not grow up in a family that nurtured my intuitive gifts. We discovered them to kind of, well, I guess they got labeled when I was about 5-ish, and then they didn't understand them. So it was kind of like, okay, put that away because we don't really know what that is. So I spent a long time really coming back to who I am and allowing myself to be that. And I think again, whatever deep themes and things that we're into, I've never found in the hundreds, maybe thousands of women that I've worked with that there's not a connection there. So I
Yeah.
love that. I love that she pointed that out to you.
I was like, why didn't I think of that? Because, I've always been working with people. I was a weight loss consultant at some time in my life. I am a massage therapist still. So
Mhm.
I love helping people. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're
But to be in
yeah,
service, yeah, sorry, to be in
no, it's
service
okay.
to me is like, And then whatever wrapper that you're using, massage, all these other pieces, it's like, but you're always in service of helping people, mind, body, spirit, different avenues you've explored.
Yes. And it's so interesting that you brought that up because I found the most joy when I was in service for others. And this is during the time in the early stages of my sobriety journey. I wanted to go ahead and do more volunteer work. I was serving the homeless. I was serving the children's ministry. It was so cute. I love the little kids. And then I was serving, I would do like event, and it was just so much fun. Not
Yeah.
only did it help me distract my mind from, oh, I got to go drink,
Yeah.
but it made me feel good inside. It was like my new joy, and I had
I
so
love
much
that.
joy serving people. Oh, and now I feel like I'm still in service. I'm not necessarily out there on the streets helping people anymore, but I feel like I want to give back to the listeners in the world, and bringing amazing guests like yourself on the podcast, so we can have these amazing discussions, so they can really understand who they are and get to tap into who they truly are. Yeah.
I love it. I absolutely love it. It's beautiful.
Now, speaking of podcasts, Everyday
Yes.
Enchantment focuses on helping listeners tap into their innate magic. Now,
Mm.
how do you define everyday enchantment? And how
You
can our
know,
listeners actually begin to incorporate this stuff in their everyday lives?
I love that because we can get so focused on being human, which I get, right? There's laundry to do, there's a meal to cook, there's all of that. And yet, to me, everyday enchantment, like we don't have to wait to a special occasion or a moment in time to really feel that magical connection, which, all energy, love, universe, God, spirit, whatever you want to call that. It started, well, it didn't start, but here's the story for me. Years ago, I went to a medium and he said to me, "You have a spirit guide in this world, somebody who is actually a real person who was in a romantic relationship with a family member. And he's here now to support you in your journey." And I was like, okay. First of all, I went out on a total like, scavenger hunt of all my family member. Oh, and he said to me, he said, no, he didn't tell me his name. He didn't say. He said, "I want you to connect with him." And so I said, or maybe he did. I'm sorry. Maybe he did tell me his name because okay, so here's this person. His name is Jack. So I said to Jack after this experience with the medium, I said, show me a sign of like who you like, where are you, like, how are you showing up? Where are you in my life? Those kinds of things. And it was funny because I did ask everybody I knew, like, does anybody know somebody named Jack? Did anybody have a secret? My husband at the time was like, nobody's gonna admit if they had an affair. I'm like, okay. So I let that go. And I had a tree in front of my front yard for years. And every morning, this beautiful male cardinal, tweet, 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 right in front of the tree every day, like almost like staring in the window at me. And it took me a couple weeks to be like, Jack, like, is this you? And he was like, yes. And so that kind of became this beautiful like relationship. And funny enough, my grandmother who's passed, she absolutely loved cardinals. She was like, she believed they were messengers right from the other side. She had all that deep connection. Well, when she passed, I ended up going up to her services. And weirdly, my mother had bought her a journal of like get to know your mother kind of thing. And she told this story of a man that she was in love with before she married my grandfather, like this whole story. And I say to my aunt, now this is years after Jack, this cardinal, has shown up in my life and been this beautiful guide. And I say to my aunt, what is that man's name that she was in love with? And she goes, oh, I have to look it up. It's been, it was a long time ago. And she said, his name was Jack. I don't remember his last name now. And I was like, what?
Wow.
And to be honest with you, like there's the enchantment piece, right? Here's this connection to this person that my grandmother loved, who anytime I need extra love and support, like I was just on vacation. Literally anywhere I go in the world, there's always a cardinal. Jack goes where I go. And so if I need like if I'm getting a little nervous about something, there's this beautiful calming energy. And I talk to him if I'm out on a walk in the woods. I'll be like, Jack, I'm struggling with something. And so to me, I know this is a long story, but that's the concept of everyday enchantment, that we have these beautiful connections to love, Mother Earth, these, spirit guides and what have you, that want to support the practicality of us being humans. And if we open our hearts to them and we listen and we are just willing, the signs, the messages, the support are everywhere, and they make everyday life so much sweeter.
Wow, what a beautiful story.
It
Wow.
blew my mind. I was not expecting when my aunt said to me at one point, she's like, "Oh yeah, his name was Jack." And I was like, because I really thought the medium had got it wrong, to be honest with you. I was
Yeah.
doubting. I was like, there is no love affair. I can't find it. And he had said to me, interestingly enough, he's like, he was in the military and he died young and blah, 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 blah. Everything he said checked out, right? At least 4 or 5 years later after I had had that session with him. So it's just been one of those things. I had a friend who passed a couple years ago from cancer, and it was funny because I said to Jack, my cardinal, I said, please go be with her as she's like, as she's going through this. And for months, I didn't see a cardinal, months and months and months. And
Mm.
then I was out walking and I heard him and I was like, Jack, now everybody, it's like, oh, Jack, Stace Jack, right? Like everybody talks to me about Jack the Cardinal now that he's kind of famous in my world. And I said, Jack, where have you been? I had forgotten about what I had asked him. He goes, I've been sitting with your friend these last couple months. And I reached out to my friend and I said, hey, I'm just curious because she was like, she had this backyard where she would go out and sit. And I said, have you seen any birds back there? She goes, well, there's been this cardinal that has sat at the back with me, like outside, right near me for the last, like all summer or something like that. And I just was crying and having this emotional response of like, when you believe that there is magic that cannot be, like to me, everyday enchantment is like the things that cannot be explained. So when you believe in the synchronicities and all of that, to me, it just expands to your purpose, talking about joy and just feeling that sense of peace and connectedness and meaning, that to me it's like I don't want to live another way.
Wow. So I actually, not a cardinal, but I have crows, and there's many
Ooh.
of them. And I always share this story with my listeners, and I'm sure they're probably tired of the story,
No,
but
I want to hear it. Share it because I don't know it.
I
And
want
I
to share
love
it
crow.
with you.
I love all animals. So
So, as a baby, my first memory, there was a crow or a raven right next to me with red eyes. And I was crying, crying. I swear I thought there was a snake inside my crib too. I was crying, 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 and I had to stand up on my crib. So I was obviously able to stand. And I remember my mom walking this way and picking me up and seeing my sister also sleeping on the twin bed next to me. And then that was my first memory. So I
wow.
later on, I asked my mom, I said, Mom, did we live in a house? And I kind of gave her like the blueprint of the room and of the home. And she's like, yes. And yes, your sister was next to you in that room and your crib was there in front of the door. And yes, we lived in the house over in Milpitas, California. And she was like, saying, going on. And I said, okay, well, then maybe this stuff is real. So
Right.
that was my first memory. And then throughout the years, there'd be crows everywhere, but they were so annoying. They'd be like, caw, caw, caw. I'm like, shut up. Right. And then I finally, said, you know what? Maybe there's more to this crow stuff than I'm realizing. And I looked into it. I was talking to people and they're like, they may just be your spirit animal. I said, you know what? Let me
Mhm.
start. They said, you need to start communicating with them. I said, how do I do that? And so I started doing it telepathically.
Yep.
And one time I was picking up my son from his high school and I was parked along the street and there was a lot of crows on across the street, just on the grass, and I said, in my head, hey, come over here, come visit me. Well,
Mhm.
sure enough, just 30 seconds later, they all came to me.
Wow.
And then I was like filming them. And then one was just like looking right at me, like, I'm like, okay. And everywhere I go on the freeway, in the morning time, not at night. But I will at least hear a crow, see a crow, multiple crows. They will always be around me. So I'm like, okay, this is my animal. And so, yeah,
Absolutely.
is that so
They
neat?
and I read recently that crows recognize spaces. They would not forget. Like they
Oh,
will
wow.
recognize you. And I absolutely, it feels very protective energy to me, just like this is me now tapping into my intuitive
Yeah.
side. And because you first saw it as a baby, you're right. We do have core animals. Like I have a tiger
Oh,
as an
wow.
animal all my life, tiger, tiger, tiger.
Mm.
And then we can also have animals that kind of just come in for different reasons or different smaller things. Like, for example, I've been seeing panda bears lately, and I love panda bears,
Oh, they're
but
cute.
I've never thought of them as being like a guide. And I was doing a little research this week, and it's like they have this beautiful balance, right, of the yin and yang energies, masculine and feminine. They're very mothering and they're very slow moving. And that's been something that I've kind of changed my whole life in the last couple of years to really move at my own pace rather than at the world's hustle pace. And it has not always been easy, but now it feels now that it's kind of more integrated. And now here's this panda is like, look, this is what I do all the time. I sit around, I eat a lot of bamboo, and it just feels fun when things like that start to come into your life. And again, I always say it's not anything I'm doing special or different. It's just that I'm welcoming that. And, I always tell people if you want to get started with these kinds of things, like look at the bumper stickers that are on the cars in front of you, or notice what song keeps popping up on the radio. Is there like a phrase in the song that is like maybe trying to get your attention, or just be supportive in a way, right? If you're having a bad day and like you're like to me, if I'm having a bad day, I go in the car, Let It Be by the Beatles is always on. It's like my soul song. And that's the thing, all these synchronicities, that's the everyday enchantment. We're going to have a bad day. It doesn't mean you're not going to be upset sometimes. And when you know you're so loved and supported through all of it, to me, that changes the way you move through anything in your life.
Yes. Oh my goodness. You remind me of another story that just recently happened. I have stories for
I love
days.
it. Me too. I love
Stories for days.
it.
So my husband decided to buy a Tesla. I mean, he's had his old car for a long time. This was like his treat to himself. And it's a Model Y, so it's a little bit higher up.
Mhm.
So we have a garage. And so he was getting groceries out, but he put the button up and it went, and it like literally, this is his first, second day that he had, I think first day, maybe, I don't even know. And it scratched the spoiler.
Oh,
I'm laughing because it's funny. It scratched the spoiler on there. And he's like, we named him Zippy. And so, he's all, Zippy got a scratch. I said, oh no, what happened? And so anyway, we went back inside inside his car, and he was just kind of like playing things, and this was just 2 minutes later. He's like, let me just try to play the music, and he plays the Bob Marley, and then the song comes on. Guess what song? Don't worry about a thing. Every little thing is gonna be all
right?
right. And he's like, he looked at me. I'm like, hey, I know. I know. It
That
happens
is
all the time.
That song is another one. Absolutely. You know what's
Yes.
so funny, Gina, now that we're in this like container of intuitive enchantment together? So, my first dog, which my father never wanted to have a dog, he was scared. And my mom went when I was in high school, decided she loved animals and she wanted a dog. So he was on a way on a business trip. She went to the local humane society and got a dog. Do you know that I have never heard anybody usher the name of this dog until you just said your husband's car name? And that beloved dog, which always reminds me, my mom's not here on the planet anymore, but when my mom wants to give me a message, she'll send me something that she'll know that's a little unusual. And Zippy was the name of that dog.
No way. You see?
I can't make this up.
This is live right here. Magic
Like,
unfolding in front of everybody's
totally.
ears
And
and
that's why it's
eyes.
every day. Yeah, it's like we're not doing it. We're not, it's just like when you are open to it, it just like I always think like it wants to delight you in such ways. If you believe, which I do, that like life does is in my favor. It's not trying to take me down. When we go through some of the obstacles that we've all probably to some degree had something in our lives, usually to me, there's some kind of breaking apart of something that's not working, right? And helping us remember who we really are, like come back to that. You strip away things that we've picked up like on the planet, beliefs, whatever, life patterns and stuff like that. That's like, this isn't really you. So we're going to create some discomfort here so that you really are willing to let go what you know, it isn't you. It isn't what at the heart of who you really are is all about. And that's kind of that authenticity that most of us, we to your point, when we have amnesia coming into this world, we totally forget that. And then we got to remember, like over and over and over again. Oh, yeah, right. That's what the world wants me to be, but that's not exactly how I am here.
Yes. And in your opinion, how can someone start to develop and trust their intuition more in their daily decision making?
That's a really great question. So I always start with where's the place where it has little consequence? So,
Mhm.
like, for example, if you just wanted to play with your intuition and you didn't want to, like, oh my gosh, I'm afraid I'm going to make a mistake or I'm not going to interpret something correctly, I always tell people to start like in a place where if you mess up, it doesn't matter. So, for example, the next time the phone rings, which I don't know, does anybody call each other on the phone anymore? But it pings with a text message before you look, like, play this game of like, "Well, who do I think it is?" Right? You just start to play with like, "Ooh, is that my son? Is it my best friend? Is it a telemarketer?" Right? And you just start to allow yourself in places where, again, if you're asking yourself, "Ooh, what do I really want to eat tonight?" Right? Because there's an intuition piece even to like what our body wants and listening to the body, not the head. The head has a lot of story. The intuition doesn't have a huge paragraphs of explanation. Well, I should eat this salad because like that's your head. Intuition's like a feeling like, oh, I could really go for a nice piece of fish grilled with some like when you start to just practice in places where again, if you have something else, it's okay. Then I think you build that confidence up to, okay, let me try it. And I always tell people too, try it in other places where again, whether it's at home versus at work, where you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm more nervous at work to trust my intuition, so I'm gonna try it at home. It's like those are the places where I think to start if you're just beginning. And I also want to share that years ago I was trained through Martha Beck. She's a life coach, and that's where I had all my training. And she said to me in a coaching session one time that she did with me, I was doubting, right? I was doubting my intuitive gifts. And she likened it to baseball, which is interesting. I am a baseball fan. And she said, when major league hitters, right, these phenomenal baseball players, when you look at their is it the RBI? I'm thinking RBI. I think it's RBI. Whatever their number is, right? Their batting average, it's not a 10 at right? It's point 0.3 something or point 0.4. So she's like, they're getting up to bat, and for every 10 times, 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10, they're doing something phenomenal. We want our intuition to be 10 out of 10, otherwise somehow it's not trustworthy. So I found that I give myself a lot of grace. It's like, ooh, well, I'm just going to go with it and see what has happened. Now, I love a good leap of faith. However, I think a lot of leaps of faith start with just entertaining the possibility, right? If your intuition is like to your point, you don't want to do massage anymore, right? There
Yeah.
was probably something in there, but you didn't just quit immediately, right? You are like, "Oh, I'll go here, I'll look at this, I'll talk to a business coach." So you start to like you're entertaining, you're into it, like it's starting to come through, but you're not necessarily like there aren't always these big gestures that happen immediately.
Right.
It's almost like a little ping. So I always say if you leave a couple minutes every day for a little quiet, you go for a walk, listen to some some quiet music, and just ask your soul, what wisdom does it want you to know today? You might not say immediately, I don't want to do massage, but at some point you might hear that or you might feel that. And I think that's the easiest way to start is just to listen and be like, show me signs, let me know, if this is I'm making a big decision, can you help me show me something really, really clear so I have more confidence on the choice that I'm
I,
going to make?
I love that. Yes. I during excuse me, during 2020, I had a lot of time in my hands, and
Yeah.
I was just getting closer and closer to God, spirit, universe, whatever you want to call it. For me, it's God. So I was just really connected, and I'm just like, wow, let me know, show me what I need to know about this world and how to navigate through it and how I can help other people. I was shown, but too much information all at once. I was like, okay, this is too much information for
Slow
me.
it down a little bit.
It's so much information. I was just learning a lot. I mean, it
Yeah.
could be another whole other podcast about the ickiness of this world.
Mm.
And I was like, wow. And I learned. And then I was trying to share it to my husband. I'm not ready for that yet. To this day, I try to share like more like the spiritual things that I've been experiencing in life. I'm not ready
Yeah,
for that yet. And everybody's journey is different. And so I have
totally.
to think like, I know you're not ready for it. So I try to like meet him where he's at
Mm,
and just kind of go where, yeah, where he's at and be like, okay, well, this is, I won't, I'll plant seeds to be honest. And
mm.
that's about all I'll do. And then eventually, like, give it another months later, then he'll be like, oh, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, that's what I just told you like 2 months ago. Now he gets it. So I love planting seeds all the time on
That's
things.
beautiful.
Mm.
And oh, go ahead. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no, go ahead.
Well, and I love the idea too that you let him have his own journey because I think so often too, when we are so excited and we're seeing some, we want everybody, right, to experience it. And what I've learned, I love my husband dearly. He has a very different take on the world. And so I don't need to convince him. Although I will say we've been together 13 years now.
Mm.
This is my second marriage that I have found that now he will say things like he'll be like, Jack's waiting for you outside on the
Oh,
train.
oh.
Which before, he would have been like, wait, what is happening? And what? So to your point, just being in the energy of somebody else's is such a beautiful way to share, it, even if we never say anything specifically, because I decided like what I believe and how I operate in the world is most important. And it doesn't mean he's wrong. It allows us both to be able to have the truth of our own experiences.
I love that. Yes, this is my second marriage as well. Obviously, my first one didn't work out because of bad habits we both had, and just, of course, two unhealthy people just do not work.
I get that. Yes.
Right. So,
Yep, been there, Gina, done that. Yes.
yes. Now, let's talk a little bit about authenticity because I think people are now starting to be their authentic self. At least I am, and I don't
Yeah.
apologize for being myself. This is who I am, and if you don't like it, all good.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all good. You're not my peeps then.
Totally.
Yeah. What are some common obstacles that people actually face when trying to live authentically, and how can they overcome these challenges?
That's you have the best
Oh,
questions. So I think this is universal almost in any woman I've ever coached, which is if you want me to be up my authentic self, I'm going to turn into a jerk because I'm going to say, no, I don't want to do that. No, I don't like that. No. And it's like, and then they're like, and nobody's going to like me, right? Or if people are going to misunderstand or criticize me or judge me. Like that is the thing that I think everybody who wants more authenticity in their life runs into. It's like, so if I want to be more authentic and I want to say no more, I don't want to apologize, like it's gonna, shake up the world around me. And I'm like, yeah, it might. And that's okay. First of all, there's no way we can walk on this planet without at some point being misunderstood, judged, and criticized. And what somebody else, did you ever read the Four Agreements or now it's the Five Agreements by The author is Don Miguel Ruiz, I think, unless I
No, I
mixed up.
haven't.
Ooh,
No. Share this with me.
so good. One of the agreements, they're basically like these beautiful just philosophies to kind of live by, and one of them is don't take anything personal.
Hmm.
Okay, that's fine when it's just like, somebody like you don't know that well, and it's like, all right, if they don't like me, that's fine. However, when it's in your like close inner circle and somebody disagrees with you, it can be really, really hard. And I think, again, we kind of start in places where it's easier to practice. And then a lot of times, as we get more confident, bigger things like around us, like a couple years ago, there was something I just didn't want to do, and my husband was asking me to do it. And I was like, I can't. I want to say the caregiver, the person that always wants to make everybody happy, wants to say yes. But then the other part of me is like, this is not going to be good for me. Like taking on this role and responsibility had to do with his mom who was sick, and it was like this is too much. And it was really hard for me because I was like, what if he doesn't love me anymore? Like
Yeah.
you come up with all these fears, and I say that's okay. When you're working with authenticity, you're going to come up with the scariest thing. It's like the big bad wolf at the door. All of a sudden he's not on the other side of the door, he's like in on the couch with you, and you're like, "Ooh." When we can lean into the discomfort, which again, most of us humans, this is why we've had bad habits because we don't want to lean into the discomfort. When we aren't afraid to be uncomfortable and speak our truth from such a loving place, first of all, nobody's ever becoming a jerk when you say what you truly need and what you want. We've created a world where, again, we're people pleasing, so many of these other behaviors that really do take us away from being authentic. So when we start to practice it, it's new. So number one, just brain science, it's going to be uncomfortable because you're creating a pathway in your brain that has never been, you go to A to B every day, and then all of a sudden you're going A to F on the other side, and your brain's like, wait, we don't like this. We don't know what this is. And so taking that time to say, okay, just because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean I'm doing it wrong. Doesn't mean like being more like to me compassionate and graceful for yourself and everybody else involved. And you don't have to make big sweeping announcements to everybody either. Sometimes you don't even need to say something. That's what I found. Like when you're being authentic, you're not over explaining yourself. You're not defending yourself. And that's another piece of authenticity that's really hard for people because we're so used to like, no, I don't want to go to that barbecue because I, and we think we have to come up with some reason because otherwise, and it's like, it's okay if they're disappointed. They're allowed to have a feeling and manage through that themselves. And when we're in a relationship authentically, we can each make space for each other's feelings without having to carry them. We can care for the other person and care what's happening, but we don't have to carry it like, I did this, I'm responsible, I'm a bad person.
Totally. You have to make sure it feels good inside. Like whatever you're doing, does it feel good? Are you going to feel
Yeah.
good afterward?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times I've people please. I think since I was little girl in elementary school, I
Easy to
turned
do.
tomboy from fifth grade into turned tomboy then in sixth grade because girls didn't like me wearing dresses. I mean, they weren't
Mm.
short dresses; they were just dresses, and I love wearing dresses because I just love getting ready. I still do.
Mhm.
I still do. But I changed for them.
Mhm.
Big no. It's like, oh my
Yeah.
goodness, what are you doing, Gina? It's really important to be yourself and know what you're aligned to. So if
Yeah.
it, and it's a gentle no, it doesn't have to be, no, I'm not going to do it. It's how you
Right.
say it. Like, hey, from compassion and kindness
Yes.
behind it, then they're going to be okay. They may be a little disappointed, but they'll get over it.
Absolutely.
They'll get over
Hey,
it.
we none of us, I always say, not when people say, especially about their children too, it's like, I don't want to disappoint them. I'm like, have you been disappointed before? They said yes. And I said, so we all know how to manage it. And actually, when you know how to manage more of the uncomfortable feelings, well, then it's just going to flow through. Every emotion and feeling is temporary. So if you allow yourself to go through it rather than put the brakes on it, you're going to find that again, like the clouds, it's
Yeah.
or the weather, things are going to shift from one moment to the next, and you'll feel so much more peaceful and grounded because these things won't just turn you upside down every time.
Totally. Yeah, thinking about my kids right now, yeah, they don't get their way. They don't get their way.
It's good for,
Yeah.
again, healthy conflict or difference of opinion, or all of that to me. I was a school teacher for
Oh,
10 years
yeah.
before I did any of this. And it's like, it's good for kids to figure out how to navigate that. It makes for I think, very healthy collaboration with people.
Oh, yes, 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 yes. Now, your work actually is filled with, I would want to say, a lot of joy and authenticity, of course. How do you actually maintain your own sense of joy and balance, especially when life
Mhm.
gets challenging for you?
That's again, Gina, you need to come write all the questions for my podcast. I love all these. These are amazing. Okay, so the first thing I believe in bookends. It's how you start your day and how you end your day really matters. Because when you are just like I was the person in my 20s who hit the snooze button 20 times because I didn't want to get up. I was tired. I wasn't taking good care of myself. I didn't like what I was doing. Like I didn't like who I was married to. Like I just was like, put the covers over, don't want to do it. And I let like the day, right? Like then I was in a rush and let the day kind of just run me. And then I'd fall asleep at night exhausted and what have you. And it just was like rinse, lather, repeat. So to me, bookends, how I start my day, how I end my day. So in the morning, the first thing that I do is I have a little conversation that's like something amazing is going to happen to me today. Like before I take my feet out of the bed, there's a little, like, I'm just planting the seed of something fun and magical. It doesn't have to be huge, but just something fun. And and then I take a walk. I take a nice walk in Mother Nature. So I ground. I talk with myself about the wisdom, what does spirit, God want me to know? My dog is with me, who I absolutely love. And we just kind of meander. And that's how I always, it's it's unusual for me not to start my day with a walk. It's like I don't care what the weather is, I am out there. And then at the end of the day, I'm going through perimenopause, menopause, so my body is changing and I'm really honoring that. But one of my other bookends was like to take a shower at the end of the day. And so I would take a shower and I would imagine all of the energy, because again, I pick up a lot of energy working with clients, everything, all my messages, everything that I don't need anymore, just kind of washing away down the drain. I always imagine it going to the center of the earth and just planting itself there beautifully. But that would be an energetic cleanse that I would do every day. So intention to start, cleanse to end. And then again, I like to have space in my day. So I don't cram it one thing after one thing after one thing, which I found to be hugely helpful for my own energy and my own joy when I'm not overdoing things. And so it's like, oh, if I think this is going to take an hour, I'll put a little, maybe 15, 20-minute buffer, So then if it runs
Mhm.
over, or maybe I'll go read a little chapter out of a book, just infusing your day with, like, to me, pleasures, your favorite cup of tea, your favorite mug, all of that that you curate around you, to me, then just is like you're emanating that frequency of joy. My backdrop, like everything matters to me. That is like, does this bring me more joy? It's kind of the oh gosh, what was that woman that was very popular? I cannot think off the top of my head, but she was an organizer and she did Does This Spark Joy? Marie Kondo. And
Oh,
it was like, you just kind of do that with your life, like not just about your things, but your whole life. Like, and when you start doing that, it takes a little bit of time to kind of go through that process. But then you really have not just your outer environment, your inner and your outer, like they're all in sync with each other in ways that to me, like everything fuels and feeds each other.
absolutely. Someone had brought up before, tea time is me time. So they would literally go
Mm.
ahead and take the time and just have some nice tea. And like little
Yeah.
rituals you can actually create for yourself, whether it's candle lighting and just having a moment of silence, whether it's going for a walk,
Yes.
whether it's just stepping away from your computer, just take a deep breath.
Yes.
I've
A
learned
deep breath
yeah, deep breath. Yeah, let's talk
solves
about deep
everything.
breaths.
Solves everything.
Yes.
I have a podcast episode coming out, like the top 3 life hacks, and one of them is like, just take 3 d wherever you are in a moment, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed, take 3 deep breaths,
Yeah.
and it will shift your energy in a way, then you'll have a clear sense of what you wanna do next. Yeah,
100%
yeah,
because I always state that when you're overwhelmed, step away from your desk, take 3
yeah.
deep breaths, and then go ahead and write down your tasks and then
Mhm.
prioritize. Circle like 3 and then just tackle one at a time.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Because
know
it can
what?
get overwhelming. Yeah.
It really can, and you know what I think we're all like, again, that endless to-do list. Years ago, I went to like a business conference thing, and there was a speaker there, and he had a methodology. It was like 3 things for the day. And so when I work with clients, always like, we all want to do 10 things, but this idea of like, if you could do 3 things and feel successful, because that's the other thing. It's like, what am I making it mean? A lot of times, what we're making a like, "Oh, I'm behind, I'm tired, I'm like, oh, and then I also am like, oh, if I didn't get to it, I also give myself like, I'm like, okay, didn't happen today. I don't beat myself up. And I think that's what a lot of like what we do is we're always thinking, if you're always thinking you're behind, you're always thinking there's never enough time. That's another huge energy suck, that belief. I always say there's plenty of time to do the things that matter most to me.
Oh, yeah. When people say, I'm so busy, it means like, no, you're
Mhm.
just not a priority in their lives right now.
Right? Busy is like the new 4-letter word. It's like a status, trying to be
Yeah.
busy, and I'm like, there's a meme that went around, like, in my community, and I loved it. It was like, "I'm saying no, not because I'm busy, because I don't want to be," right? Like,
Yeah.
that is a shift, and I think it's being implanted here, right? A lot of us are like, "We can't do it this way, it doesn't feel good." But it's like we're still bumping up against a lot of, like, the way the world wants us to just keep going and just
Yeah.
don't stop, and I'm like, the slower we go sometimes, the more impact we actually have. The more we can see, am I in alignment with my life, or am I just doing everything on autopilot because I've been doing it for so long?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Just changing those habits. And then when you
Yeah.
start building and creating newer habits that are more fulfilling and you find joy and you feel good with them, it's like brushing your teeth. We just do it in the morning time
Yes.
because it just
Yeah,
becomes part of your daily routine. And
totally.
yeah.
And I think that's a really good point too, Gina, because when you want to, like that mindfulness, that 3 deep breaths or whatever you want to do, like, or the walk, it's like when you tag it to something you're already doing, you kind of hook it in, then it's so much easier to create as a habit than if it's just kind of hanging out all by itself. So I find like when I want to do something, if I like exercise, I'm like, oh, I want to do a little bit. I need to plant it into what I'm already doing so that it becomes, again, just part of my routine in the morning, not like, oh, am I going to exercise? Am I not going to exercise? Because we know my brain, when I go down that path, it's like it wants to talk me out of it every time.
Yes, and just could be just gentle movements too, because when we
Yeah.
think of exercise, we think of like a hit class or
Yep. Yep.
treadmill,
Yep.
running, elliptical, something like gotta sweat.
Yeah.
But just some
Yeah.
stretching, just getting even the foam roller, just getting that
Mhm.
fascia. See, here goes the massage therapist in
Oh, I
me.
love it.
That fascia, just kind of getting those muscles released, just releases things in your body because we tend to build all of our tension in our shoulders and our back. At least I do. Anyway, that's my
Yeah.
shoulders. If you
Yeah.
can see, they're a little bit elevated because I'm always like this. I need to learn to relax. And you'll be proud of
Mhm.
me. I actually did my breathing exercises yesterday because my body told me I needed to do it. I
Yeah.
felt it. Listen to your body because it said, you know what? You have some stuck energy inside there that needs to be released. And it's crazy
Mhm.
because when hold a stretch or when I'm breathing, I start twitching like this, like I'm going in convulsions. But that's my
Releasing.
body releasing whatever it needs to release. And I tell you, I feel so much better afterward.
I love that.
Brand
And,
new.
that's another really good point too. If you want to get in touch with your intuition, do some kind of movement. It does not have to be like, you don't have to go out and run 3 miles. after when you're finished, because you've changed, you've moved energy, you've kind of come into a different state because you're usually much more embodied when you're doing something physical, asking then your body, spirit, whatever you want to say to yourself, it's like, what's the wisdom in this moment? And I've found when people do that, or they do some kind of art or whatever it is, like there's an opening, there's a different energy there that then you'll have access to way more depth than you will when we're just, if you're going and try to figure it out, it's like the brain can't, it's a lie, although I don't know, maybe the new generation will be able to multitask, but us older brains are not multitasking. We need to stop and really be able to consider one thing at a time. So,
Oh, yes, I agree. If I was texting and my husband's talking to me, I have to literally stop the text and just pay attention. I cannot do two things at
yeah,
once.
yeah,
Or if my mom is talking to me and I'm texting and then she starts talking to me, I'm like, Mom, give me one moment, please. I'm just going to finish up this text real quick and then I'll get to you. She's, oh, okay.
yeah,
'Cause I tell her,
yeah,
listen, I can't do both. If you want my undivided attention, I need to finish what I'm doing or just focus on
yeah,
you and then stop what I'm doing. I
yeah.
can't do two things at once.
And what a beautiful gift that is to give somebody your undivided attention in a world where I feel like our attention is so divided and split into so many places. I think years ago when I did business training, I used to say from the research, I have no idea what it is today, but it was like 1,800 messages people were getting
Oh
in
my
the course of a
goodness.
day. I'm sure it's way more because this is before the onslaught. This is a good 10, 15 years ago. And so it's like your brain, it's like the decision fatigue and all that. So when you say, I'm going to carve out my attention only
Yeah.
and solely for you. Like to me, that when you slow down and you do stuff like that, there's meaning, there's connection, there's authenticity because somebody's being heard and somebody is doing like a beautiful job of holding that space and listening. Like to me, they're like that's an enchantment, right? A moment of enchantment right there.
Right. Oh my goodness. Now, where can our listeners go ahead and connect with you?
Hmm. So, if you're interested, my podcast is again called Everyday Enchantment, and everything else for the most part's on my website, which is just my name, first and last name.com. So, staceyandon.com. I also have a free Facebook group called Everyday Enchantment where I do all this. We have so much fun. I do videos, I do different messages. It's a place where people can come and really show up authentically and practice because I don't believe, like to your point, we're going to be perfect in it, but practice these types of mindfulness, this type of like, ooh, I saw this sign today and I want to share and I want to bring more joy to
Mm,
the planet. So if you're a Facebook person, please feel free to come over there too.
beautiful. And I will have everything in the show notes. But any last words, Stacey? And Stacey, your last name is Andon, right? I don't think I
Yes,
even mentioned
Andon.
that. I
That's
don't even think
okay.
I mentioned that in the podcast.
It's all good.
And I know there's like millions of Stacey's. So Stacey Andon,
Yes. Yep.
Andon.
Yes.
Okay,
Two
perfect.
prepositions pushed together. This is my favorite thing to say always. You can't mess it up. So if you're like, "Oh, I really want to have more enchantment or joy or mindfulness," just start very small somewhere. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't even have to be every day. If
Yeah.
it like a minute, 5 minutes, keep it small and tag it, like you said, to something. But really know truly, you cannot mess up your best life. If you think, oh my gosh, I'm older and those opportunities have missed me, they're going to come back around for you just like a wave would for a surfer and invite you again into the magic that's your life. If you're open and you're like, oh, I'm going to keep my heart open for all this, it's not going to pass you by. It's going to come right up to your door and knock and say, hey, here I am. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you so much, Stacey, for being on my
Thank
show.
you.
I really enjoyed our conversation. I feel like I can have you back on again. We can go on.
Everyone says that to me. I love it. I love that.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.